The first time I saw a human fight. Without weapons, I laughed, actually. Laughed. My translator box crackled with static as the sound escaped my vocal sac, and Commander Vrel shot me a look that could have melted titanium plating. But seriously, what was I supposed to do? We just watched this pale, skinny specimen named Marcus step into the training arena against a fully armed Croston warrior, and the human had nothing. No plasma rifle, no shock baton, not even a ceremonial blade, nothing. "This is your great equalizer," I whispered to Lieutenant Cora, who stood beside me in the observation deck. "This is what the Galactic Council fears." Cora's antenna twitched, a sure sign she was nervous. "Just watch Specialist Thorn." The Croston, a massive brute called Grath, who stood nearly 3 m tall and had arms thick as support beams, raised his electrified spear. His mandibles clicked in what I'd learned was their version of cruel amusement. Marcus just stood there, hands empty, feet spread in some kind of stance I didn't recognize. His breathing was calm, steady, like he was waiting for morning rations, instead of facing certain dismemberment. "Begin." Commander Vrel's voice boomed through the arena speakers. What happened next defied everything I'd learned in my 6 cycles of military academy. Grath charged forward with the grace of a planetary destroyer, that spear crackling with enough voltage to stop a hover tank. Marcus didn't run, didn't dodge. He waited until the last possible nanosecond, then moved, not away, into the attack. My 3 hearts nearly stopped. Marcus's hand, those soft, fragile-looking appendages, shot out and grabbed the spear shaft just below the electrified tip. His body twisted in a way that seemed anatomically impossible for a vertebrate species, and suddenly Grath was stumbling forward off balance. The human's foot swept behind the Croston's leg, and 300 kg of armored warrior crashed to the deck with a sound like a cargo container hitting pavement. The spear clattered away. "What in the 17 moons?" I breathed. But Marcus wasn't done. Before Grath could recover, the human dropped onto the Croston's back, wrapped one arm around that thick neck, and hooked his legs in some complex configuration around Grath's torso. The Croston thrashed, powerful arms reaching back, trying to grab his attacker. Marcus just held on, adjusting his grip. With small, precise movements, his face remained calm, almost bored. 15 seconds later, Grath tapped the deck 3 times with his palm, the universal signal for submission. The arena fell silent. Marcus released him immediately, stood up, and offered his hand to help Grath rise. The Croston stared at that hand like it was a venomous serpent, then slowly accepted it. "Adequate demonstration, Specialist Marcus," Commander Vrel announced. "Class dismissed." I stood frozen as the other trainees filed out, my scales tingling with something between terror and fascination. Cora nudged me with her elbow joint. "Still think it's funny?" she asked. "That was how did he didn't even." "Yeah." Cora's antenna drooped sympathetically. "That's the standard reaction." 20 minutes later, I found myself in the station's recreation center, still trying to process what I'd witnessed. The Galactic Coalition had been at peace with humanity for 2 standard cycles. Now, ever since they joined our alliance against the Vex Collective, but we'd all heard the stories, the whispers. Humans don't need weapons. They are weapons. I dismissed it as propaganda. Honestly, every species talks up their combat prowess. The Crostons boast about their strength. The Silvari pride themselves on their reflexes. My own people, the Thessians, are known for our strategic minds and poison resistance. But this was something else entirely. You look like someone just explained quantum tunneling to a child. I turned to find Marcus standing beside me, holding 2 bottles of that strain carbonated beverage humans seemed addicted to. He offered me one. I don't think my digestive system can process that, I said, still slightly defensive. Probably right, more for me then. He took a long drink, then sat down on the bench across from me. Up close he looked even less threatening. Average height for human, maybe 1.7 m. Lean build, no visible natural weapons. No armored hide, no venomous spines. His eyes were a strange shade of brown. That seemed to shift in the light. That thing you did in the arena, I finally managed. We don't have anything like that in our combat databases. Marcus smiled, and I was reminded that humans had more teeth than strictly necessary for their omnivorous diet. It's called jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Specifically, been around on Earth for about a century, but its roots go back much further. A century. I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. Our records show humans only achieved spaceflight 4 cycles ago. Yep. He took another drink. We've been fighting hand to hand for thousands of years, developing systems, refining techniques, testing them against each other. Jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling, boxing, Muay Thai, karate, Kung Fu, Krav Maga. He counted on his fingers. And those are just some of the formalized systems. Every culture on Earth developed their own methods. My vocal sac went dry. You're telling me that your species has spent millennia perfecting the art of killing each other without weapons? Well, when you say it like that, it sounds bad, Marcus grinned, but yeah. Pretty much. See, here's the thing. Weapons break, they run out of ammunition, they get lost or taken away. But your body, he tapped his chest, your body is always with you. So we figured we should probably learn how to use it effectively. That's horrifying. Is it? He tilted his head, genuinely curious. Every species fights Thorn, it's survival. We just took it seriously. Before I could respond, an alarm blared through the recreation center. Red emergency lights pulsed along the walls, and Commander Vrel's voice crackled over the intercom. All combat personnel to stations. We have a hostile boarding situation in Sector 7. Repeat, hostile boarding in Sector 7. Marcus was on his feet instantly, that casual demeanor vanishing like smoke. Vex. Has to be, I said, already moving toward the door. My hand instinctively went to my sidearm, checking the charge. They've been probing our defense perimeter for weeks. We ran through the corridors, joining streams of other soldiers heading toward their assigned positions. The station shuddered as something impacted the hull. My tactical display showed 3 breaches, all in the commercial district. Bad news, lots of civilians there. Thorn, Marcus, Lieutenant Cora's voice cut through my comm unit. We need fire support at Breach Point. Alpha, half our security team is pinned down, and the Vex have some kind of shielding that's deflecting plasma rounds. On our way, I responded, taking a sharp turn down a maintenance corridor. Marcus kept pace beside me, his breathing steady despite the sprint. We arrived at Breach Point Alpha to find chaos. The Vex had cut through the hull with precise thermal lances, and now a dozen of their shock troops were advancing through the opening. These weren't like anything else in the galaxy. Biomechanical horrors, half organic tissue and half synthetic implants, driven by a hive intelligence that made individual casualties meaningless. And Cora was right. Our plasma fire was hitting some kind of energy barrier around them, the bolts splashing off like water on glass. Energy dampening field, I shouted over the weapon's fire. They've adapted. Of course they have, Marcus muttered. Then, to my absolute horror, he holstered his sidearm and started walking toward the Vex line. What are you doing? I grabbed his arm, but he shook me off. Gently. Energy weapons don't work, so we go old school. He cracked his knuckles, and I heard several of our soldiers make nervous sounds. Tell your people to create an opening. I'll need about 3 seconds. You're insane. There were 12 of them. 14 actually, 2 more coming through the breach. His eyes never left the advancing Vex. The opening Thorn. Now would be good. I looked at Cora, who gave me a desperate nod. What choice did we have? All units, concentrated fire on the left. Flank 3-second burst, then cease fire. Our remaining soldiers, about 20 of us, opened up on the left side of the Vex formation. The energy barriers flared bright as they absorbed the onslaught. The Vex on that side slowed, their attention drawn to the threat. Marcus moved. I've watched the security footage 17 times since that day, and I still can't fully explain what I saw. One moment he was beside me. The next he was among them. The first Vex didn't even register the threat before Marcus's elbow drove into its optical cluster with enough force to shatter the synthetic housing. As it staggered, he grabbed one of its limbs and used the creature's own momentum to throw it into 2 others. The Vex's shields protected them from energy weapons, but apparently nobody had told them about kinetic force. Marcus flowed between them like water through cracks. A knee strike collapsed one creature's thorax. A twisting throw sent another crashing into the bulkhead hard enough to dent the reinforced plating. He moved constantly, never staying in one place, using their own bodies as shields against their companions. Suppressing fire, Cora screamed, "Cover him!" We opened up, forcing the Vex to split their attention. But honestly, I don't think Marcus needed the help. A Vex shock trooper, larger than they others, managed to grab Marcus from behind with its mechanical arms. Those arms could crush hull plating. Should have crushed the human instantly. Instead, Marcus dropped his weight, twisted in a way that made my spine ache in sympathy. And suddenly, he was behind the Vex. His arm wrapped around its neck joint. His legs hooked its body, and he applied pressure in a way that made the creature's central processor visibly bulge against its casing. The Vex made a sound like grinding gears and went limp. 5 seconds. The entire fight lasted maybe 5 seconds. Marcus stood among the disabled Vex, breathing hard but steady, and looked back at us. Someone want to finish them off with actual weapons now. I can hold them down, but I can't kill them barehanded. Their armor's too thick. We stared. All of us, even Cora, who'd apparently seen this before, looked shaken. Weapons free, I finally shouted, finding my voice. Target the disabled Vex. Our plasma fire made short work of the incapacitated creatures. Without their mobility, the shields couldn't properly deflect the sustained barrage. As the last Vex fell, Marcus walked back to our line, rolling his shoulders. Anyone got water? I'm parched. You. I couldn't form words. You just. With your bare hands. Well, hands, elbows, knees, feet. He accepted a water bottle from a stunned Croston soldier. Like I said, your body is always with you. The Vex relied on their tech too much. Made them predictable. Predictable, I repeated numbly. Commander Vrel's voice came through the comm. Breach Point Alpha, status report. Cora responded while I was still trying to restart my brain. Hostiles neutralized, Commander. Minimal casualties on our side. How many Vex? 14. A pause. 14. With a 20-soldier unit, that's impressive. I'm sending reinforcements to secure the area and patch that breach. Well done, Lieutenant. Marcus finished his water and tossed the empty bottle into a recycler. So Thorn, still think it's funny that humans fight without weapons? I looked at the scattered Vex bodies, at the dented bulkheads, at the human who just dismantled 14 biomechanical killing machines with nothing but his body and training. No, I said quietly. No, I really don't. He clapped me on the shoulder and I tried not to flinch at the reminder of what those hands could do. Don't worry about it, most species have that reaction. It's why the brass makes us do demonstrations. Better you see it in training than panic in actual combat. That was actually combat, I pointed out. True. Marcus grinned. But hey, now you know. Humans don't need weapons to be dangerous. We've been apex predators on a death world for millions of years. We just got really good at the whole survival thing. As maintenance crews arrived to begin repairs and medics checked the wounded, I found myself thinking about Earth's application to the Galactic Council. All those debates about whether humanity was too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous to join civilized space. We'd been asking the wrong questions. Entirely. It wasn't about whether humans were dangerous. It was about making very sure they stayed on our side. 3 days after the Vex incident, I got summoned to Commander Vrel's office. Not invited. Summoned. That's never good. I found Marcus already there, leaning against the wall with that casual confidence humans seemed to radiate. He nodded at me as I entered and I noticed his knuckles were wrapped in some kind of white fabric. Specialist Thorn, Commander Vrel began, her crest feathers bristling in what I'd learned meant she was agitated. I have a problem, sir. The Vex attack wasn't random. Intelligence has decoded their transmission logs from the disabled units. She activated a holographic display between us. They were specifically targeting our research wing. More precisely, Dr. Finish's xenobiology lab. My scales went cold. Dr. Myra Finish was the station's leading expert on cross-species medicine. Her research had saved thousands of lives across a dozen worlds. They wanted to kidnap her, Marcus said flatly. It wasn't a question. Correct. and based on intercepted communications. They're going to try again. Soon, possibly within the next rotation. Vrel's talons tapped against her desk. A nervous habit. Standard protocol would be to evacuate. Dr. Finish to a secure facility. But her current research is at a critical phase. She refuses to leave her lab, and, frankly, we need her work completed. So you want guards, I said, more than that, I want you too. Vrel looked between us. Thorn, you're one of our best tactical analysts. Marcus, well, you've proven your capabilities. You want us to be bait, Marcus said. Still relaxed. Let them come, stop them close range. Where their shields are less effective. Essentially, yes. The lab has been retrofitted with dampening fields that should interfere with Vex technology, which means traditional weapons will be limited. Your particular skill set, specialist, Marcus, becomes invaluable in that environment. I felt my stomach sack twist. Commander, with respect, that's suicide. If they send a larger force, then we hold them long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Marcus pushed off from the wall. I'm in. When do we start? Vrel's crest feathers settled slightly. Immediately, Dr. Finish is expecting you. As we left the office, I grabbed Marcus's arm. Are you actually insane? We barely survived last time, and that was with a full unit. Last time we were surprised, this time we're prepared. He started walking toward the research wing. Besides, you heard the commander. They need that doctor's research. Sometimes the mission matters more than the risk. Easy for you to say. You can apparently strangle armored killing machines with your bare hands. Not exactly bare. He held up his wrapped knuckles. Sprained 2 fingers last time, Vex. Armor is tougher than it looks. Oh, wonderful, that makes me feel so much better. Dr. Myra Finish turned out to be a Valorian, all flowing tentacles and bioluminescent skin that pulsed with her mood. Currently, she was flashing irritated purple as we entered her lab. More soldiers, she bubbled through her translation collar. As if I didn't have enough disruption already. Dr. Finish, we're here to protect you, I began diplomatically. I don't need protection. I need people to stop interrupting my work. She gestured at a complex array of equipment humming in the corner. Do you have any idea how delicate this cellular sequencing is? One vibration, one power fluctuation, and 3 months of research becomes worthless. Marcus walked slowly around the lab, his eyes cataloging everything. How many entrances? What to? The main door we came through, and an emergency airlock in the back. Windows, vents, access panels. This is a sterile research facility. Young man, we don't have windows. Ventilation system is standard. Nothing large enough for. She paused, her skin shifting to worried orange. Oh, yeah. Marcus knelt beside a floor vent, running his fingers along the edges. The Vex can compress their bodies. Saw it in their attack patterns. They'll use any opening. Can we seal it, I asked, and risk contaminating my entire lab with unfiltered air? Absolutely not. Marcus stood up, dusting off his hands. Then we work with what we have. Thorn, I need you to set up motion sensors at both entrances. Standard military issue. Should work even with the dampening fields on it. Doctor, how long until your research phase is complete? Myra's tentacles twisted in agitation. 18 hours minimum, possibly 24 if there are complications. Great. So we just need to survive a full day. Cycle. Marcus smiled, but I noticed it didn't reach his eyes. No problem. The first 8 hours passed in tense silence. I positioned myself near the main entrance with a plasma rifle set to maximum charge while Marcus took the rear airlock. Dr. Myra worked at her equipment, occasionally muttering about contamination and cellular degradation, her skin flickering between focused blue and anxious yellow. Around hour 9, my motion sensor pinged. Contact main entrance, I whispered into my comm. Multiple signatures. Hold position, let them commit. Marcus's voice was calm, almost meditative. Doctor, get to the center of the lab, away from both doors. But my samples, now doctor. Something in his tone made even Myra obey instantly. Her tentacles gathered her most critical data tablets as she moved to the lab center behind a reinforced workstation. The main door didn't explode inward like I expected. Instead, it simply melted, the security lock dissolving under some kind of acid compound. 6 Vex shock troops flowed through the opening, their movements synchronized in that unnerving way that spoke of hive coordination. I opened fire immediately. The plasma bolts hit their shields and scattered, but the impact slowed them down, made them recalculate. Bought precious seconds. Vent, Marcus shouted, they're coming. Through the vent. I risked a glance backward and saw 3 more Vex pulling themselves through the floor ventilation, their bodies compressing in ways that violated several biological laws. They moved toward Dr. Myra with single-minded purpose. Marcus met them halfway. The first Vex never saw him coming. He'd positioned himself beside the vent opening, pressed flat against the wall. As the creature emerged, Marcus's foot drove into its sensor cluster with a snap that echoed through the lab. It collapsed, motor functions disrupted. The second and third Vex adapted instantly, spreading apart to flank him. Smart. But Marcus was smarter. He grabbed the disabled Vex's body and swung it like a battering ram into one of its companions. The creature's shields didn't protect against impacts from their own kind. They went down in a tangle of limbs and synthetic components. The third Vex lunged at Marcus with extending blade appendages. He dropped low, impossibly low, and the blades passed over him. Then he was inside the creature's guard, one hand grabbing a joint, the other striking at connection points with precise, brutal efficiency. Thorn, little busy here. Right, I had my own problems. The 6 Vex at the main entrance had adapted to my plasma fire, their shields recalibrating. They advanced in a coordinated pattern, using the lab equipment as cover. I fired continuously, trying to keep them back, but my rifle's charge indicator was dropping fast. Running out of power, I called. Then use what you've got left, smart. Marcus yelled back. He had 1 Vex in some kind of joint lock, using its body to block another, aim for the same spot. Overload their shields. I focused my fire on the lead Vex, every shot hitting the exact same point on its energy barrier. The shield flared brighter, brighter, struggling to dissipate the concentrated energy. Then it failed. The plasma bolt punched through and hit the Vex's central processor. It jerked once and went still. Yes, I shouted, then immediately felt foolish for celebrating one kill when 5 remained. But the tactic worked. I repeated it on the second Vex, concentrating fire until its shield collapsed. 2 down. My rifle died on the third one. Charge depleted, the indicator flashing empty. Red. Out, I screamed, fall back to center. Use the equipment as barriers. I scrambled backward, trying to put workstations and analysis machines between me and the advancing Vex. They moved faster now, sensing vulnerability. My hand went to the ceremonial knife at my belt, 6 inches of folded Theshian steel that suddenly felt completely inadequate. One of the Vex reached me before I could draw it. Its mechanical arm swung in an arc that would have taken my head off. I dropped flat, felt the displacement of air as the arm passed overhead, and rolled desperately to the side. My military training kicked in, all those drills about close quarters combat that I'd always half dismissed because who fights without weapons? Humans, apparently. And now me. The Vex loomed over me, arm raised for another strike. I kicked up at its leg joint with everything I had, the same spot Marcus had targeted earlier. The creature staggered and I rolled away, finally getting my knife drawn. Not that it would do much against armored biomechanical horrors, but at least I'd go down fighting. Then Marcus was there, moving like liquid violence. He'd somehow disabled all 3 Vex at the rear and crossed the lab in seconds. His shoulder drove into my attackers midsection, the impact actually lifting the creature off its feet. They crashed into a workstation together, and Marcus's hands found that same neck joint pressure point. The Vex went limp. 4 left, and they were reconsidering their approach. The hive intelligence driving them was learning, adapting. They spread out, trying to surround us. Back to back, Marcus said quietly. Watch the flanks. I pressed my spine against his, knife held ready, watching 2 Vex while he faced the other pair. My heart's hammered so hard I thought they'd burst from my chest. You know, Marcus said conversationally, this would be a lot easier if you guys knew some actual hand-to-hand combat. Some of us didn't spend thousands of years perfecting murder techniques. I shot back. Fair point. The Vex attacked simultaneously from all sides. Marcus moved right, I went left, and somehow we didn't collide despite sharing the same space seconds before. Training and instinct working in harmony. I slashed at the nearest Vex with my knife, more to distract than damage. It worked. The creature's attention fixed on the blade, its shield recalibrating to block the physical threat, which meant it wasn't watching my other hand. I grabbed a heavy analysis scanner from the nearby table and swung it with desperate strength into the Vex's optical cluster. The scanner shattered, but so did the O cluster. Sparks flew and the creature stumbled. Marcus had already dropped one of his opponents with a leg sweep that shouldn't have worked on something that heavy, but somehow did. He flowed into a mount position, raining elbow strikes on connection points until the Vex stopped moving. The last 2 Vex reassessed. I could almost see the hive intelligence calculating odds, considering retreat. Then they did something unexpected. They charged past us directly at Dr. Myra. No, Marcus and I shouted simultaneously. But Myra wasn't helpless. Her tentacles lashed out, striking one Vex with enough force to crack its casing. Valyrians were physically stronger then. They looked, I remembered belatedly, aquatic high-pressure world adaptations. Still, 2 Vex against 1 scientist. Bad odds. Marcus reached them first. He grabbed one from behind, wrapping his legs around its torso and his arm around its neck. The creature thrashed, trying to shake him off, but he held on with grim determination. I jumped on the other one's back, knife raised, and drove the blade down into a joint seam. It didn't penetrate far, but it was enough to jam the appendage. The Vex spun, trying to dislodge me, and I held on, purely through terror and stubbornness. Myra's tentacles wrapped around the creature's legs, pulling it off balance. We went down together in a heap of limbs, metal, and desperation. I lost my knife in the fall, found myself face to face with the Vex's optical cluster, saw my reflection in its cold sensors. Its arm rose, blade extending. Then Marcus was there again, having dispatched his target. His foot came down on the Vex's arm joint with a sickening crunch, and the blade stopped inches from my face. "Stay down," he said, then applied that same neck pressure technique. The Vex shuddered and went still. Silence. We lay there in the wreckage of the lab, breathing hard. Myra's skin flashed through a rainbow of shocked colors. I felt my scales tingling with adrenaline crash. "Everyone alive?" Marcus finally asked. "Barely," I gasped. "My research." Myra suddenly scrambled to her equipment, tentacles flying across displays. No, wait, yes. The cellular sequence maintained integrity. "Oh, thank the currents." Marcus pulled himself up, checked his wrapped hands, and winced. "Definitely broke another finger that time." "How are you so calm?" I demanded, still on the floor. "We just fought off 9 Vex shock troops. Practice. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm going into shock, so the calm thing might not last." He sat down heavily on the intact workstation. "Thorn, you did good. That scanner move was smart." I panicked and grabbed the nearest heavy object. Best combat tactics often look like panic from the inside. He smiled weakly. "You improvised, adapted, survived. That's all that matters." Before I could respond, the main door burst open properly this time, and Commander Vrel rushed in with a security team. She stopped short, taking in the scene of destruction and disabled Vex. "By the ancestors," she breathed. "How many?" 9, Marcus said, "would have been easier with weapons that actually worked. In here, you, the 2 of you, and Dr. Myra." Vrel seemed unable to complete sentence. "The doctor has surprisingly good reflexes," I offered, still catching my breath. "Sir." Myra's skin flushed pleased pink. "I did contribute, didn't I? Wait until I tell the Xenobiology conference. They'll never believe combat fieldwork enhances research focus. I believe standard procedure is evacuation now." Marcus asked hopefully, "Because I would really like some medical attention and maybe several drinks." Vrel's crest feathers rose in respect. "Standard procedure is commendations. Specialist Marcus. And you, Specialist Thorn. This is the second time you've held against impossible odds." "Just doing our jobs, Commander," I said, finally managing to stand. My legs shook only slightly. "No." Vrel looked at both of us seriously. You've done far more than that. You've proven something important. Humans fight without weapons, yes. But more than that, they teach others to do the same, to improvise, to adapt, to survive. Marcus laughed, then winced and held his ribs. That's a very poetic way of saying we're too stubborn to die properly. Perhaps. Vrel's expression softened slightly. But it's a quality the Galactic Coalition needs, especially now, as medics arrived to treat our injuries, and security teams began securing the disabled Vex for analysis. I found myself watching Marcus. He sat quietly letting a medical technician scan his hands, looking utterly ordinary again. But I'd seen what those ordinary hands could do, what that ordinary human could accomplish when everything else failed. Later in the medical bay, after the adrenaline had worn off and the reality of survival set in, Marcus found me staring at my hands. Thinking deep thoughts, he asked, his fingers now properly splinted. Thinking about what you said, about the body always being with you. I flexed my fingers experimentally. My people spent centuries developing strategic doctrine, advanced weapons, tactical superiority. But we never thought to perfect ourselves as weapons. It's not too late to learn. He sat down beside me. Every human combat system started because someone needed to defend themselves. It grew from necessity, evolved through practice. There's no mystery to it, just dedication and time. Would you teach me? Not just for combat, but to understand how you think, how you move, how you see fighting. Marcus considered this, then nodded slowly. Yeah, I can do that, fair warning. Though the training is brutal, you'll be sore for weeks. After fighting Vex shock troops twice, I think I can handle a little soreness. That's what everyone says. He grinned. Then we start with the conditioning exercises. Over the following weeks, as the station repaired damage and Dr. Myra complete her research breakthrough, word spread through the Galactic Coalition, not just about the Vex attacks, but about how they'd been repelled, about humans and their strange fighting arts, about the lesson they offered. Clear's throat. Technology could fail. Weapons could break. Shields could be adapted against. But knowledge, skill, and the will to survive, those were universal constants. I showed up for my first training session with Marcus in the station gym, expecting a few other curious soldiers. Instead, I found 30 personnel from 6 different species, all wearing training clothes, all looking nervous and determined. Marcus stood at the front, his hands healed now, wearing a white jacket with a black belt around his waist. He grinned when he saw the crowd. All right, everyone, welcome to Human Combat Systems 101, first lesson. He gestured to his body. This is your primary weapon. You'll have it from birth until death. So we're going to learn to use it properly. He moved to the center of the mat, beckoning a volunteer forward. A Croston stepped up, probably twice Marcus's mass. Basic principle, Marcus continued. Force multipliers through leverage, momentum, and precision. Watch. What followed was the same display I'd seen in the arena weeks ago, but slower this time, broken down into comprehensible steps. The Croston ended up on the mat, controlled but unhurt, looking stunned. Your turn, Marcus said to all of us. Partner up. We'll start with falling safely because Trust me, you're going to do a lot of that. As I paired up with a nervous-looking Silvari, I caught Marcus's eye. He winked. 3 cycles ago, I'd laughed at the idea of humans fighting without weapons. Now I was volunteering to learn the methods along with dozens of others. The Galactic Coalition was changing, adapting, learning that sometimes the most advanced weapon was the one you were born with, refined through dedication and understanding. And somewhere in the station, probably, still obsessing over her research, Dr. Myra was telling anyone who'd listen about her exciting combat experience, her skin flashing enthusiastic colors. I hit the mat hard as my Silvari partner executed a throw, and Marcus's voice echoed through the gym. Good again. You won't learn if you don't practice. Yeah, we were definitely changing. And honestly, after everything I'd seen, everything I'd survived, I wouldn't have it any other way.